Welcome back to Just Talking Sports. My name is AJ, and today I have a very special interview. He is one of the best coaches in the group of five college basketball. He's not a one-time, not a two-time, but a three-time and three-time straight Patriot League Championship head coach. My guest today, Colgate's head coach, Matt Langel. How's it going, Coach? Thank you for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me, AJ. I'm honored to be on. I don't know if I'm any bigger than anybody else, but my pleasure.
Awesome, Coach. So first off, I like to start every interview off with just how did you get into basketball when you were younger?
I grew up in a family that we were just trying to be as active as we could. My father had played some sports growing up, maybe even played Division III basketball. But I was a guy who played a lot of sports. I mean, soccer, baseball, basketball, tennis, golf, like all the sports you can think of, maybe other than football. I was a part of youth sports. So basketball was just a wintertime activity for me. And then, as I got older and older, for some reason, I don't really ever pinpoint why. I think it's probably because you can be an individual and just take your ball to the playground and go to the gym and work on your own, but you also get a chance to be a part of a team. And that I probably gravitated towards basketball over some of the other sports that I love very much as a youth.
You went to Penn University. It's a really high academic school, and you played basketball there, and then you tried out with the Supersonics and the 76ers in their training camp, summer camps. How did that experience really motivate you and know that you're going to like you have a success in basketball? Because then you went on to play European basketball, and then how did that experience really kind of take you to the higher levels?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think for me, in basketball and in life as a younger person, I was just always trying to, compete, be competitive, whether it was in school or sport or playing in the, video games with my brother. I was always trying to be competitive. So, in basketball, the best way to do that was to work at your game and try and go to a place the year ahead that you hadn't been the previous year, whether that was improve your ball handling or your shooting or spend time in the weight room to get stronger. So with that mindset and some great coaching along the way that I had at the University of Pennsylvania specifically, I was able to improve. And so, we had successes as a team, especially later in my career. And that did afford me a chance to go and try my hat at another level. And, those professional experiences that I had, also shaped, who I am as a person living overseas for the better part of 4 years. Makes you appreciate I hadn't gone very far away from home to go to college, and makes you appreciate some of the things that you have here and some of the things that you value. And also looking back on it, I learned a lot about basketball in other cultures, in foreign countries. From I had teammates that had played at other universities, so learned a lot about the game along the way through those different experiences.
After your professional basketball career was over, you went back to Penn. This time to become an assistant coach underneath legendary head coach Fran Dunphy. How how did that happen? Like necessarily, like how did you go back to Penn, and why did you start getting the coaching?
Um, I don't know if we have enough time to go into all the reasons, AJ. But while I was playing overseas, the people that I went to school with, you stay in touch with your friends and your peers. And so, I knew I wasn't going to play basketball forever. I wasn't going to make enough money to be able to retire as a as a former professional player. So, trying to figure out what I was going to do. My father was an attorney, and he always loved his job. He worked really hard at it, but he loved his clients, the people he worked with, the cases that he worked on. And so I knew I wanted to, so many people hate their jobs and hate the work that they do. And so I knew I didn't want that. As I talked to the people who were, doing different things in business and what have you, I often found that, in their young perspective, the ends were justifying the means, meaning like they got courtside tickets to the Knicks game, or a car service picked them up, or they got a $50,000 bonus for a job that they were doing. And I wanted to enjoy, the work that I was doing. And that's what basketball had always been. I was not one of those people that said, man, I can't wait to coach. Like, that's what I want to do. But basketball was that. So I had talked to Coach Dunphy off and on when I was playing overseas, just about, what different opportunities were out there and what coaching entailed. And so, I'm a big believer that things happen for a reason. So I was slated to go back to Italy, I thought, and in August, and right as we were packing our bags and getting ready to go. I'd been studying, Italian on tape all summer to learn a foreign language, and the job fell through. The general manager changed, the coach changed, and they didn't want me as a player anymore, that specific club. And so right at the same time, Coach Dunphy happened to have an opening on his staff. And so, he and I talked a little bit, and he said, hey, do you think you're done playing? And I said, I don't know. And he said, well, don't worry about it. If you want to take this opportunity, it's yours. And if something comes up playing, then you can leave. Don't worry about, leaving us shorthanded. I think that speaks to the type of person he is, to the type of coach he is. And so, yeah, I got started in coaching, not knowing if I was going to be in it or for how long. And, I was able to be an assistant coach on some really good teams at Penn there. We won some championships. And then, Coach Dunphy replaced Hall of Fame coach John Chaney at Temple, and he took me with him. And, the rest is kind of history. I got a chance, because of the successes there, to be a first-time head coach at a really young age here at Colgate University. And, haven't looked back. It seems like yesterday, but it was a long time ago now.
I feel like you really got your coaching career on the map when you were at Temple. They had some really good seasons there, and you're a part of those really good seasons. How do you think that experience really kind of shaped you into the coach you are today?
Yeah, I think a lot. I had, from college experience, I had only really known one place, right? One institution, University of Pennsylvania, where I'd studied, where I'd lived, where I'd played. And then as an assistant coach with the same head coach, and, the same locker room, the same home gym, kind of knew what those guys were about, the types of young people that you recruit to go to that school. And so Temple was very different. It was somewhat familiar because I had, we stayed in the same city. I'd grown up playing against and watching those teams and playing against those guys in the summer. But a lot of those guys were, had different perspectives, different backgrounds, different upbringing. So it was certainly a new experience for me to be an assistant coach at a place where I didn't play, having to build new relationships and adjust to what those guys were about and what their experiences were. So definitely learned a lot about the game, about players in those 5 years that I was there at Temple.
You then go to where you're at now, Colgate. And to be honest, it wasn't the greatest time for Colgate basketball. It was honestly what they say in a dumpster fire. And you took that job, and you brought the team up to where they are now today, going to NCAA tournaments, 3 consecutive Patriot League titles. How did you take that job, and did you have any other offers on the table, and why did you choose Colgate?
Well, I don't know if there were any other offers. Again, after 7 years, I was really fortunate to have been a part of some very successful teams, some championship programs. Got a chance to work with some really good players that had put me in a category maybe that I could be considered for a head coaching job. And I don't say that lightly, because a lot of guys work in this profession for a long time and never get that consideration. Here at Colgate, for me, my brother graduated here. And so it was an institution that I was somewhat familiar with. I think the academic background, again, being in the Northeast, growing up with academics as a real priority of my life. And again, like I said, my brother having gone here, that it made some sense, right? It was families and young people I could identify with an institution that the mission of the school aligned with some values that I have in terms of what education can be and where it can lead you. And so it made some sense. It's a cutthroat profession. There's only 360 some odd chances to be a head coach. So, I was really flattered and forever indebted to Dave Roach, who happened to be the athletics director at the time that hired me. And again, it was not easy, not easy as a first time head coach, not easy trying to win any game, and a lot of work has gone in. You mentioned the recent successes, 6 straight championship games, the last four NCAA tournaments. We've been able to be a part of them, but a lot of work in those first handful of years by a lot of different people, players, coaches, administrators that went into kind of building up the foundation for what this program stands on now.
Your success at Colgate, you started off a little bit slow. That's just because you're kind of building up the team back up. In the last 6 years, you're saying it's been up, like just all the way up. How do you think the development process really went with you as a coach? Because you developed one of the best offenses in the game. What do you think your style of offense brought to this team that it needed to be able to have this much success?
Yeah, AJ, I don't think there's one specific thing that we can touch on here to answer that question. I think this is a player's game. So, first and foremost, the credit goes to the players, the work that they did, the time that they put in, the commitment that they've had to try and learn and grow and develop both on and off the floor. I think that the coaches that we've had, and a number of them went on to be head coaches from here. And the coaches that we have now work tirelessly to help that process, right? To help the individual improve their game, add things at all time, every step of the way, not just in the off season to be the best individual player, but also, developing the concept of team over self, right? Like we've been able to coach guys who have adopted that as their mantra. That's who they are as a person. It's not a sacrifice for them to average a few less points in order for the team to continue to grow and get better. And so they've, within the landscape of who their teammates are and what's going to put us in the best position to have successes, they stepped into those roles and developed in those roles. And be it shooting or screening or reading the defense or whatever it may be that we're working on. I'm so thankful for the types of guys, not just the talent that they've had, but the types of guys that we've been able to coach here at Colgate that have helped us along the way.
During this last 4 to 5 years of the big run you guys have been on, you've been with Tucker Richardson, who's been one of the best leaders and one of the best players in your team history. He left after last season. You have 3 of your top 5 scorers from last year returning. Who do you really see taking over that number one scoring option, and how do they get it done?
It's a good question, and if I had a crystal ball, I'd ask to rub my hands and ask that question, but it's not something that I think about, AJ. I think that if you look back in this recent run here of our success, we've had a lot of guys step up. 5 guys average in double figures. So I think the natural answer to that question is Keegan Records. I mean, he was first team all conference last season. He's really developed. He's in his 5th year. He's developed every year and added to his game. He's a great defensive anchor. So, I think the general consensus would be that he could, step into that leading scoring role. Ryan Moffitt has been a Swiss Army knife type player, can score inside, score outside. Braden Smith had a great freshman campaign last year. You could see him stepping up in those opportunities. But I think we have a lot of guys. Chandler Baker played a role as a transfer last year. Nick Louis Jacques has put in a lot of time. I think there's a lot of guys. Jeff Woodward is a phenomenal player all around. I don't know if he'll ever embrace the role of being leading scorer, but he's certainly a leader on our team. So, a lot of guys, Sam Thompson in his 4th year, who I think can really step up and grow in that opportunity that's vacated by Tucker and Oliver as they graduated and moved on.
You have 4 new freshmen this year. Surely you have a couple that might redshirt, but You have Cooper Wright, Jalen Cox, Parker Jones, and Julian Scott. Who's really stood out to you during the what you guys call training camp or like the practices up to the first game? Who's really stood out to you? Who
Yeah,
can make a
we had a chance to work out in the summer before our trip to France, and we got to play a couple of games over there, and now we've got another 20 some practices under our belt to include the preseason workouts, and I think they're all doing a really good job. I think that as you look at our roster, we're really front court heavy, so Sam Wright and Cooper Wright, I don't know if they'll get as much opportunity because they're of the positional and the circumstances of our roster where, like a guy like Jalen Cox, he played at South Kent School, a national powerhouse prep school. And we graduated some ball handling. And so, as he comes in, as Kyle Carlissimo comes in, I could certainly see those guys getting some opportunity because Braden Smith is the only returning ball handler that we really have on our roster. So I think that those things play themselves out as the season gets going, as you get some of these scrimmages under your belt, as you get in the non-league, because there's so much to adjusting to college, not just on the court but off the court as well.
or just talk about recruiting? What do you when you're as a head coach? A lot of coaches have their specific what they want in a recruit. How do you recruit, and what type of things do you look in to a high school or transfer portal or JUCO guy?
Yeah, it's it's a broad-based question that if I had an exact answer to it, I would bottle it up and sell it to other people, and maybe I would just interview folks like you're doing now. But I think there's a lot of things that go into it. One, we're a unique institution, right? Colgate University's, like you mentioned, really prestigious academically, high caliber academics required just to gain admission here, right? So, we can't just recruit anybody who we think would be a good fit for our basketball program. We've got to take into consideration the academics and how whether they're going to be able to gain admission and certainly how they're going to be able to do when they're here. That's really important to us in that process. We're also a small school on a rural campus in the northeast part of the country and up here in central New York. So, if there's a guy who he's really looking for, a lot of action on an urban campus in the middle of a large city, this may not be the right place. So even if we hit it off and we build a great relationship and he's a great player and might help us, people typically don't do well when they're not happy. And so if that's not something that a student, a prospective student athlete is looking for, then it might not be the right fit. The other part, AJ, in addition, obviously, to the talents of a basketball player, the skill set, the positional needs on our roster, we have a very much, I know a lot of coaches say this, but we have a very family atmosphere here. My children are around the program all the time. Our assistant coaches' families are around and a part of things. So, we really need guys who are steeped in that and come from those types of families and, are looking for that to be a part of their experience. Guys who want to be involved in the community and be role models for young people and take their academics really seriously. And so, finding young people who have that character that mirrors what we have on our team now. They don't have to be from the same places or the same backgrounds. In fact, the more diversity we have in those spaces, the better. But people who are looking of high character, who are looking for teammates, who mirror those traits and characteristics is something that's really important to us.
Last question for you, Coach. I know you got a really busy schedule. I went a little bit over time, but what are the keys to success to win a fourth straight Patriot League championship?
Yeah, again, as cliche as it sounds, I know all coaches say this, but just take things one day at a time. I mean, we can't win a championship in October, November, December. What you got to do is keep getting better. And so these games really matter as we kick off the season in November. But the most important thing for us is to continue to improve and develop. That's individually and collectively. So, that we can be, playing our best in late February and March, because, in the Patriot League, only one team gets to go to the NCAA tournament, and you got to win that. You win those games consecutively in March. So, you need some luck along the way. You got to be able to stay healthy. You've got to be able to, make shots at a consistent rate. Like everybody hits slumps at certain times, and so you gotta balance each other out. And so, again, as cliche as it sounds, just kind of focusing on, what can we do today a little bit better than we were doing yesterday. And if you string a number of those days together, that becomes weeks and months. And then you look back at the end of the season, you say, man, we're loads better than we were. And let's go try and play our best, when the playoffs hit.
Once again, thank you, Coach, for coming on. I know you guys have two big upcoming games to start the season. The 6th, you start against Brown, and then you go to Syracuse that very next week. So can't wait to watch you guys, and good luck this season.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me, AJ.
Thank you for coming on. My
Take care,
honor.
pal.